Hi, welcome to another edition of We Review Races with Billy and Sam. This is the Azores Triathlon edition. This was a double weekend for us, so we did challenge Lisbon on Saturday and then flew from Lisbon to the Azores. I still don't actually know what island we're on.
Tertiary.
TER is the airport. So if you're looking for this triathlon,
super cheap flight to get over here.
Dude.
It was so cheap that we booked two of them because we were hoping to be able to get the earlier flight, but just in case we didn't get the earlier flight, we booked a later flight so that we would at least have a ride over here.
Yeah.
With the number of people that were on our earlier flight, I think we probably could have booked it when we walked up to the airport.
Yes,
because it was not a full. Yeah, it was cheap.
No, I had my own row, and then the row next to me was completely empty. So there were of the 6 seats, there was one person, that kind of thing.
So it was cheap for us to get here. We think that it's subsidized by the government.
It has to be. This race does have a cash prize that we didn't have a chance at.
Yeah, like
but,
€1,100 too. Man.
Yeah, for the top finisher got €1,100, and
he was way out front.
Yeah, he earned it.
On the bike, he was 28 miles ahead of me when he passed.
Dude, this so. This is a brutal course. I feel like we should just say that out. The website shows it that the bike is brutal.
Yeah.
So it's not a surprise going into it that they advertise 3,600 feet of climb. We think it's probably closer to 4,000.
Yeah, we got 4,000 on ours.
My watch says 4,500.
Yeah.
So I'll take it off of my watch, but certainly. Difficult course, but so we'll dig into that. But this is a local race, so I'm leading all this to say we don't know what normal check-in is like. There is some kind of pasta party the night before that's included in the price of the race, and then I think there's a celebration dinner after that we didn't go to.
Yeah, she said something about awards at 7:30. We weren't fixing to get any awards, so
We could have, because there were 66 racers.
So if you found this video, it's because either you watched another one of our video or you Googled Azores.
You've reached the end of the internet. This is actually the end of the internet.
When this video is over, the internet cuts off. That's it. Sorry.
This race, I want to call it a boutique race because it's small, but they have a tent. And transition is in the tent. Your bike has your number and your name. There were maybe 3 bikes per rack.
And then you had a chair.
And you had your chair. I was chair number 81. So there was most triathlons where you have seats. There's, I don't know, Egypt had a bunch. But we've had some where there's 6 seats or 8 seats, and so one person pops in and finishes changing, pops out. This was your chair, so when you sat in it sweaty, the next sweaty person to sit in it was you. Really, this is the best transition hands down that we've had so far.
It was pretty sweet. So we got there in the morning and they already had our stuff because they knew we were coming in late. What you got was you got 3 string bags. So this was your morning clothes bag. The swim's a point to point, so this was kind of important because they took your stuff back to transition. The next one, the green one, was the bike bag, and then the orange one.
So it didn't actually matter because you had them underneath your seat.
Yeah.
So your bags were under your chair, and then you sat in your chair, you got your stuff out of your bag, you threw it back in your bag, and you were off. So then, I can't say enough to that. We feel like we should include a picture.
You did get a swim cap.
And silicone swim cap at that.
Yeah, and we've never had a race number made out of this material. We don't know what it is. It's kind of a rubberish.
It reminds me of what we call peel and stick for houses, like a waterproofing membrane.
Yeah, I don't know. It's pretty
super nice. I don't know. Some of the racers chose to wear it underneath their wetsuit for the swim.
Didn't know what that was about.
Yeah.
I guess they were trying to win.
Hey, man, 1,100 euros on the line. I'm going to get that money.
I guess.
But, I feel like this actually will hold up. I don't know. I'm going to actually go patch my roof with it later. So if you have a hurricane, just swing by the old Azores Triathlon, grab some dips. Very, very impressive on the transition. So really impressed with that. So let's talk about the swim.
Swim point to point. There was a shuttle, and it was a nice shuttle bus. You could walk to the swim start, and for spectators, it was a little bit easier to walk to the swim start if you had tennis shoes on. Probably wouldn't do it in sandals or flip flops. I don't know. Maybe by the time that you get there, they'll be finished. But they're building this like giant boardwalk or whatever, pretty much from the swim finish to the swim start.
So it's a 1.2 mile swim, but it's kind of across the bay, so your walk is longer than 1.2 miles to get there. So the shuttle is athletes only, so your people will have to walk.
If they want to get to the start.
If they want to see the swim start. But it was
And if you're a slow enough swimmer like us, like me, walkable. They can easily walk back and see you at the finish line.
Oh.
So anyway, it was the water was cold.
Water is cold.
The swim.
It was not Napa cold, so I don't know how to kind of like where to put that tier in there because it felt.
Yeah, Napa cold. I got out and I think that I was really just like not hypothermic, but my body temperature had lowered. I got out of this swim.
One of the other racers called it like a headache, like brain freeze when the water's that cold, and this was not that bad. So cold, but not awful.
Colder than
excuse me,
anything probably we've had this year except for Napa. I would think.
Yeah, that's probably fair.
Yeah. So, sandy beach. It's a mass start.
But it's 66
But it was 66 people, so you mass start 66 people, and it's not that big of a deal. The buoys were not in a straight line, and they wanted you to keep them on the left. I did keep them on the left. I didn't even see anybody not keep them on the left.
Dude had like a soliloquy in Portuguese and then English. Buoys on left.
Yeah.
It's like, man, what information? What other information was conveyed in there? That but so Portuguese is of course the main language spoken here. English is no problem. Everybody speaks English. Literally,
in Brazil, we kind of had a hard time communicating with some people. In Portugal, no problem.
No issue. I mean, so very cool.
And the Azores too, no issue.
Yes, absolutely.
You swim across the bay into this narrow little channel where there are sailboats, like large sailboats, on the right, and super shallow sandy waters on the left. So there might be an actual one-person channel that you can swim through. I'm swimming along and I'm grabbing sand, and I'm like, am I at the end? So I just stand up and kind of jog for a little bit.
I did the same.
Hop back in. They didn't have any problem with that.
I was like, oh man, I guess tide's going out. So I pulled off my cap and my goggles. And I looked forward and like, oh crap. So I'm running around like trying to, so mine was kind of a mess there at the end.
So don't take off, when you hit sand, don't take off your
you're not done yet. But you come on the boat ramp to get out. There's no carpet or anything on the boat ramp, but that was a smooth boat ramp.
And then there was a shower.
They had a shower.
Yeah, and a freshwater shower, and you could stand up under it as long as you wanted, especially when there's only like 3 people behind you, because that's all that was behind me. And go into transition, and Sam's in there, but I'm just kind of relaxing or whatever, and not relaxing, but I'm not super hurrying. Then I'm going to take my bike out, and as I'm leaving with my bike, there's one other bike in there, in the whole all of transition. I was like, yes, I'm not last.
So long as we're not.
All right, so head out on the bike. Tell us about the bike.
So the bike.
Mind you that our energy level is going to make a big difference in probably how this review goes because we were tired.
I mean, you'd done a 70.3 the day before and flown to the island, so you're tired. But I don't think that's going to affect my review much. We'll see. The roads here, so I'm expecting you're on an island. Every island we've ever been on has deplorable roads. And of course, winds, trade winds over the island. So I was expecting to fight the wind and fight the roads all day. And to that, I was pleasantly surprised. I fought some winds and I fought some roads, but it was not all day. This is a very strange bike course. The island has, and we confirmed it today, more cows than people.
Yep.
So 70,000 cows, 56 or 58,000,
57,000
people. So we at points we were in. I mean, at most of it we were in cow country. So they had semi-closed roads, is what I'm going to call this. Police at every roundabout, at most intersections, but we did have some cars.
I'm going to call them very rural roads. So we took a tour today of the island, and the way the tour guide explained it was everybody lives on the perimeter of the island, and then the center of the island is all agriculture because it gets twice as much rain on the inside of the island as it does on the outside. And plus the outside, you have the beach view. I mean, why would you not want that? But you're going to feel like these are going to be the worst roads ever because the first 8.5 miles suck.
I mean, so
you're going uphill the whole time and the roads are not great. Especially the worst part of it was the island. When you fly in, you'll see it that all of the farms are divided up by these rock walls, and there's like a gazillion rock walls everywhere, and each one is like a plot of land. And so they'll move the cows into that plot of land, and the cows will eat the grass there, and then they'll move them into another. Well, in order to move the cows, they got to walk on the street. Wherever the cows walked on the street, it was bad roads.
Yes.
I mean,
there's no argument there. Pretty much the cow poop was the smooth part of the road. You pretty much wanted to aim for that.
Yeah, if the cow poop was dry, that's what you wanted to roll on. Because, it was pretty bad.
So those roads, I'm going to compare to Louisiana level bad, Texas level bad. There were some very good roads.
So after you got on the good roads, you're like, oh my goodness! These are so much better, and they weren't really that great. They were just so much better than what you had before.
This wasn't. It's not that bad.
I see how you are.
Where we were going through some of those downhills, the roads were very reasonable, and so we're coming up some of these uphills. I don't mind a crappier road on the uphill because I'm going slow anyway, and coming downhill, crappy road scares the heck out of me because I'm going fast. So this course is not it's kind of weird. It's maybe an out and back with some offshoots, might be the right way to describe that. I mean, it's a volcanic island. You're going uphill. There's just no way to soft sell that. You're doing some climbing and you're putting in some work. It didn't feel, I wasn't angered by this course, if that makes sense. It didn't feel like they just sent me up the most giant hill they could find.
Excuse me. Every hill, the first 40 miles was uphill.
Yes.
So
with breaks,
for me, granted, we were tired, and the power that I used on this course versus the power the day before is 15% less. So clearly my legs were tired. But with that in mind, the first 5 miles took me 23 minutes, 24 minutes.
24 minutes for me,
something like that. And I was like, ooh, this is going to be a long day.
Yeah.
The second 5 miles was like 33 minutes.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my goodness, am I going to be able to finish this in the minimum amount of time? Because, I mean, they had a cutoff that was 5.5 hours. It was 5.5 hours from the time that you started to the time that you had to be off the bike. And that was 5.5 hours from the time you started the swim. Mm-hmm. And I'm doing the math, and I'm like, yeah, I got to do better than 33 minutes. But I didn't have a single segment under 20 minutes until the segment from mile 40 to mile 45.
Yes.
So that's.
Yeah, the way home is glorious. You don't really get to enjoy it, I want to say, because you were shot. So, you're putting out that effort on the front end. But I will give it, it's better. At least your legs got a little break on the way home, so you got a solid, 30, 45 minute break. No.
If you like mountain climbing type stuff, this is going to be a great course. I mean,
yes.
And if that's your deal, if you like mountain climbing and you kind of hate swimming and you kind of hate running, I mean, this really is your course. I mean, that's because the bike is it. I mean, that's the thing that's going to take the most effort. I don't really have anything to add. I mean, you got some stunning views. When you go through the mountains, you end up with stunning views.
Dude, this island is beautiful.
I mean, we went to the Canary Islands, and it was the Lanzarote was a volcanic island.
Yeah,
and it's their slogan is "Race on Another Planet" because it looks barren, and it really is. This is a volcanic island, and it is lush.
Dude, green. I mean, unbelievably green. Really pretty. Highly recommend that. So yeah, you get to go through these cedar forests.
Yeah, so at some point in the last 400 or 500 years, somebody brought in some Japanese cedar trees and planted them, and so you're going through these 100 foot tall,
massive trees, gorgeous. Yeah, and so it's not the wind kept it at a reasonable temperature. I was worried about being too cold, but once the sun came out, it was really nice. So not too hot. I don't really like hills, so I don't really want to say that part of it, but I enjoyed the bike given that I didn't like that part of it.
I didn't enjoy the bike at all, but I don't think it was because the bike's fault. It was just because this was a double, so I'm not taking points off for that. I mean, could they have done better roads? Probably not.
No, I think they picked probably the best on the island.
This is the course that they're going to do from now on, because the issue is everybody's in the cities, in the perimeter, so they send you to the middle of the island on these rural roads. I mean, there were a couple of sketchy spots as you're coming down the Cal roads, and they have some right and left turns, and you're like, so coming down the nice paved roads, I felt like I could, they were banked a little bit, and I felt like I could lean into the bike, and I would, I'd be okay. On the Cal roads, it's kind of like, man, I don't know if I'm going to slide out on the cow turds or, it's kind of a little bit of loose gravel in there. So that was kind of sketchy. That was about the only part. And then they had a U-turn. So the last U-turn is at the bottom of a hill. I mean, we always hate that. Why in the world would you put a U-turn at the bottom of a hill? And this one, I still don't understand why they did it, because the course was long. So you're going, you got really good speed, and then you see this, people set up in the middle of the road, like, hey, turn around here, and you're like, let's turn around. And then the last part of the bike, so you go out on this, when you leave transition, you go on this cobblestone road, which didn't bother me a single bit going out, because I'm kind of cold from the water. I don't have a lot of speed, and it's going uphill. And then you immediately get off the cobblestone road and go on this, beach walk thing or whatever. Coming home, you're like, oh, okay, well, I'm going to get back on the beach walk, and then, that's how you're going. Nope.
No.
Right before you get on this little nice, smooth beach walk thing, they say, turn here.
Yeah.
What am I turning here for? The finish line's right over here.
Up this hill.
And it was up this cobblestone road, and it was straight up. It wasn't that long, 50 yards, 100 yards.
A steep grade,
But it was a steep grade. And then down this cobblestone, the rest, you just added more cobblestone, and it was, when you were going down, it was
white knuckling
beating the crap out of you. So that, to me, I called that a screw you hill at the end. The reason they did that is because the run course went out.
It had
on that
been
thing.
taken over the other.
But still, it was
You're a
just
bit
kind of
stuck.
like, because I mean, our legs were just wiped, and then they do that at the very end, and you're like, why they do that? So, I mean, those are some issues that I had, but if you go into this knowing that it's 4,000 feet of gain, it's going to be a really tough bike course, but there's going to be some great views, and the roads, if you can get past the first 8.5 miles, then you're okay. I mean, it's still the last, 4 or 5 miles, or I don't know, 2 or 3 miles, because the way it comes back, it doesn't go back exactly the same way.
Yeah.
But regardless, if you get past that first 8.5 miles, mind you, you're not finished going uphill. You're not finished going uphill till mile 40.
Yeah.
But if you can get past that first little bit, then you're like, okay, well now I can make it. So I mean, for the bike, I don't think they're gonna change it. I don't think they should. Like I said, we took a tour. There's probably not any better roads on the island. That's how it's gonna be. Just know that going in. Tough bike course, great views.
Yeah, I wouldn't change the bike. We took the tour today and went on some different roads, and what they sent us up wasn't the worst that they could have. So it's I would recommend, if you get the chance to drive the course beforehand, you'd make a big difference. If you're adventurous, you could bike a couple of days out so you're not shot. But getting some experience on the roads would be highly recommended. There was one that ends in a T and comes. I mean, you get some great speed, and then it's just so I'm pretty sure they could hear my brakes all the way back on the mainland. But yeah, that was super cool. We get back on the main road and it's not closed, but you had a policeman on a Vespa is really what I think that thing was, but doing loops. So I got guided by a policeman, making sure that there was nobody in my way. So you have, it's an island, you only got so many roads, you've got to have access for people. But yeah, he was making sure that everybody was getting out of our way. So that was cool.
So let's talk about support. 66 racers. I'll bet there were more than 66 police officers out there.
Yes.
Because at some of those turnarounds, there were 4 or 5. I mean, not turnarounds, but like the traffic circles, there were 4 or 5 police officers. I mean, phenomenally supported by the police.
Yes.
The aid stations.
We got to talk about this because there's 4 of them.
And they've got to do better. That's something they could improve on.
Yes.
They're on steep uphills.
Yeah.
And so you're grinding away, you're tired, you're not going to reach over. I did get one water bottle. I don't know where, it must have been the last one. Whatever it was, but I mean, maybe just people are better climbers than we are. I don't know, but they seem like they could have put those aid stations in better spots.
Yeah, the aid stations could have been moved around a little bit to make for a better race. I'd certainly take a look at that last descent because, like you said, it was 58. Was it 57 or 58?
57 and a half, I think.
Mile and a half, race. So yeah, you could have taken that further up the hill so we didn't have to climb as much. So I appreciate that they looked for a good area. So the place that they had it had a nice wide turn, but I swear it looked like there were a couple of places that also had the same thing that we could have done. So yes, there are pieces of this that could be helped, and and certainly aid stations was one of them. There were better places to put them. So that they had 4, I really appreciate. As far as where they were was not awesome. I agree with that. So then we get out to the run.
I come out on the run and I'm like, this is going to be my longest race ever. Because it took 4 hours, a little over 4 hours on the bike. I thought it was going to be under 4 hours until they made it longer than 56 miles. I mean, our bike ride's 3 hours. I mean, we can do it. I mean, between 2 hours and 45 minutes and 3 hours and 15 minutes is probably 90% of our races.
Yes.
And for this to be a 4-hour bike, that might be the longest bike we've ever done.
Yes.
Lanzarote was probably.
But this is the most hills we've ever done too. So most elevation gain.
Yeah, and it was a double. So at the run, he called it absolutely flat. My Garmin said there was 100 feet of gain. That's not absolutely flat, but
yeah, I mean, okay. I will give you. I wouldn't have called it absolutely flat. Now, every race director lies, so I don't mean that in a bad way. But they're trying to sell their race, and he's already got to sell a hard bike. So he's trying to sell an easy run. And this was not an easy run. You certainly had some minor undulation. I would call it reasonably flat. I would not call it hilly. But yeah, there was some undulation, and we were certainly feeling that. But it's long and slow. There was not any big hills or anything to deal with.
I don't even mind calling it flat. I mean, you call it a flat run because it is a flat run.
Yeah,
but I wouldn't call it
absolutely flat is reserved for Maryland.
Yeah. And it's 4 loops, and I didn't hate the 4 loops.
So it's interesting, right? If you watched our last video, then I sound like Scrooge. So on this one, same 4 loops, not nearly as angry.
They had an aid station at each end, and you kind of started in the middle. So you hit the aid stations 8 times, and so I mean, which we'd like to see more than
I like to see them. I'd love to see an aid station closer to the center too. So just adding, I get that adds another level of complexity. But
they were handing out bottles of water, and one aid station had ice cold water, and one aid station had room temperature water, so you could choose
what you're feeling.
I mean, just when you got to the aid station, the ice cold water, you're like, oh my god, finally some ice cold water. But I mean, maybe the people who wanted the still water, when they got to the room temperature, they were like, oh my god, no cold water. I don't know, whatever. You went through. So the name of the beach is like Praia. I don't know, whatever.
I'm not even going to attempt it.
Praia de Victory.
Yeah.
It's the Victory Beach is what the city is. And they apparently drink a lot on this island.
Yeah.
And you went along this like boardwalk with all these restaurants that everybody was partying and cheering for you almost the whole time.
Yeah.
We were at the very end, so some people had just left by the time we got there.
Yeah.
But still, it was a lot of fun. It was not I wouldn't call it a closed course.
'Twas not a closed course in the least.
That's something else. The one section was where you went out on the road.
There was just nobody there. It wasn't closed. There was nobody there.
Yeah.
It was just barren.
The beach side, I mean, we've had this before, like in Atlantic City, where people, I mean, you're running up and down the boardwalk, and you're like, don't you realize there's a race? And they don't care. They'll walk 5 wide and block the whole thing. That's kind of how it was here, too.
It was not super crowded.
This is our off season.
So that's all. Some of it, I would like to see some cones or some. They had volunteers who, I mean, you've got teenage kids, man. You're not expecting them to just sit there and tell adults to get out of the way.
So the race director was in the busiest spot, and he would yell at people, and they would pay attention to him. So I think if he just gave that authority to the rest of the volunteers, they'd probably pay attention too. But I mean, every time we went by him, I mean, he was whistling or whatever to people to make sure they got out of the way. It was fine. I didn't hate it. We ran it a ton faster than I thought that we ever would. So ended up working out good.
So, I once again 4 loops, and I still don't love 4 loops. But I didn't hate this run.
And they didn't have timing at either one of them. But what they had people marking that you got there. So, I mean, you can do that with 66 people.
And they gave rubber bands at one and scrunchies or whatever at the other. So, once again, 8,000% more security with, now you had a cash prize. So, you had that, but for the people at the back, that didn't really matter.
No.
So, I just appreciate that they cared enough to give you a rubber band and mark your name on a piece of paper. And once again, everybody spoke English the whole way around.
Or Portuguese, whatever you mean. They were just, anything that you wanted. Probably Spanish. I don't know if they spoke Italian, but I mean, pretty much any language you wanted, they'd yell at you in.
I don't know what kind of Rosetta Stone he's pushing, but as far as communication with the volunteers at the thing, that's what I was talking about. So at least Portuguese and English. After that, his name is William Crozier for the lawsuit. Yes, you absolutely rely on his statements.
I mean, if you're watching this video, you're watching it in English. So
yeah.
And unless do we have a Spanish translation?
That's true. We're gonna get some subtitles. We'll have Sydney work on that for us.
Anything else you got to add on the run?
No. No.
That was it. All right. So finish line. Tell us about the finish line.
So finish line.
In a boutique race.
Yeah.
You can do things that you can't do.
Absolutely. So. I had asked, my family came, and I had asked the race director, hey, I was passing it one time, hey, can kids cross the finish line with us? Yes, go. He was mostly making sure that I'm running, but yes, kids were allowed to cross the finish line with us. They had no issues, and so that always makes it extra special. I love to see that from races. I think more races could do it, but I mean, once again, we're at the end, so most people are done. But at the end, they let our family come into transition. That was and eat and drink and have the food that the athletes got. So that was really cool and unbelievably generous. The family that puts this on. Is trying to put on a really, really great race, and I think they're probably 2 or 3 years away from.
I mean, if you can just get people to skip Lisbon and come to the Azores,
yes, they would be much happier.
They would be much happier.
Their legs might be a little sore, but they would be happier people. But yes, I mean, we have had. The stickers with our name on them,
yep.
But never a placard.
Yeah. So
crazy stuff.
It's a cotton T-shirt.
Yeah.
And it's just 2 colors, but it does at least the front and the back.
Yeah, they did a very cool finisher back on it.
I mean, the ribbon is thinner than the challenge ribbon. The medal's probably about the same, but this was your medal. For a boutique race, for an independent race, I think this was.
And we signed up for this one at the absolute last minute, and still paid significantly less than challenge.
Yeah.
So.
We didn't get a backpack. We didn't get a hat.
Well, we got 3 more backpacks than we got.
String bags.
String bags.
But the expectation was lower because you paid less, and you hadn't. I mean, it's an independent race. It's just kind of a shot in the dark.
So, anyway, you got a score on this one?
Yeah, I'm going to give it a solid 6, maybe even a 6.5. I mean, as far as effort, I think they deserve a 7. There were some things that I would change on the bike as far as the up and down. I'd like to have maybe one more aid station in the middle of the run. The swim wasn't my favorite swim. I mean, but.
Point to points, so much better.
It's one of those things.
So it's in a bay, or in a bay.
I mean, they should have had more sighting buoys. I mean, they had 3. Over 1.2 miles, you had 3 sighting buoys, and they weren't even in a straight line. But I mean, you just swam towards the sailboats, and that was you'd eventually get there. I was going to say 6 or 6.5. I gave it a solid 6.25.
Okay.
Final score.
Lock it in, Regis. This is a 6.5 race for me. I hate hills. I don't know how to tell you guys how much I absolutely hate hills. So for me to give this a 6.5, they just went all out for the athletes, and I was super impressed. So that it's a difficult race going into it, but I don't hesitate. I would come do this race again, and
Yeah, I mean, just the flight from Lisbon to the Azores was like $50.
Yeah,
which included the bike. Skip, you'll save that much by not doing challenge and
the island. I don't actually know how much our Airbnb is since the family's here. I didn't have to do any of that stuff. But yeah, we got it. We're close to. We were walkable to the race. We were just outside of walkable to the airport. So the cab was like $8 to get here. Airbnb, the food is cheap here. So yeah, this is a great vacation.
Sure.
So yeah, highly recommend this race. Stay tuned. Next week is Outlaw in Nottingham. So prepare for an hour of Robin Hood jokes and 5 minutes of actual race review. So thanks so much for watching, guys. We really appreciate it. Thanks. We'll see you next week.